Tottenham 3, Palace 1 reaction. I have to say, with those last 20 minutes, Spurs were absolutely incredible and looked back to their best. But the first 70 minutes, first 60, 70 minutes, it was a little bit slower from Spurs. I think once they scored, once they got the goals, it almost opened up Palace a bit more space, and I thought they thrived. And I thought the centre-backs, particularly Micky Van De Ven, had a good game. I thought Emerson Whitehouse was decent, to be fair. Vicario solid as always. I do think the midfield was a little bit slow to begin with. I think Basuma was the best of the three midfielders to begin with, but they grew into the game, and I think they had a lot of the ball. And I saw a lot of Spurs fans online say it was a really bad performance, but actually, I don't think it was a bad performance from Spurs. I think they just were lacking that threat in the final third. They were very dominant throughout the game. They had a lot of possession, but I think Werner wasn't being direct. Kula was a little bit predictable coming inside because he didn't have that blistering pace. And I think Ange saw that, and Ange brought on Brennan Johnson, and I think Brennan Johnson was game-changing today. I thought his directness, his pace is sort of what got Spurs back in the game. I want to talk about Micky Van De Ven. I think he's not had a bad game for Spurs. I think he's good. I think Micky Van De Ven, when Spurs signed him, I knew he was a good player, but there's certain players that were like, basically, the way I describe Micky Van De Ven is he was not meant to be that good. I thought his ability to defend such large spaces and cover such large amounts of ground is incredible. And I will talk about Micky Van De Ven in a sec. But I want to talk about the all-round performance, because Spurs looked like they were going to have a lot of the ball and they weren't scoring and stuff. But I wouldn't say they were bad. They were dominant. They just weren't particularly, threatening. Like the Spurs at the beginning of the season moved the ball so fast were particularly threatening. And I think Maddison's definitely not quite hit his pre-injury Maddison levels yet, but I did think he ended the game better. But in general, Spurs had an XG of 2.5 to 0.23. They had an expected threat of 2.13 to 0.61. And look at the possession ahead. You can't say that Spurs were bad. Yes, a lot of the goodness came in the last 20 minutes, but I think Spurs fans are being a little bit negative that I've seen and I've spoken to about this result, because obviously football isn't all about statistics. I know that, but stats-wise, they were very, very dominant. And something that I picked out here, actually, that I wanted to talk about, because I'm going to talk about Romero, was ball progression. And I have to say, what Romero brings, I think, is very, very underrated. I think Romero, I think Micky Van De Ven was the better centre-back today, but Romero's ball progression, Romero's ability on the ball was very underrated. And Romero is a goal threat. Apparently, no centre-back scored more goals than Romero. I think he's got 4 now. I might have to fact-check that, but that was something that I did read. Here's a bit more insight into Romero's statistics. Don't want to dive too much into statistics, because I think for centre-backs it's quite a hard metric to use, but 125 passes attempted, 116 completed. He's a very good ball-playing centre-back, and his progression via pass, his progression via carry is very good. He's very good at sort of getting Spurs up the pitch, breaking lines, and that's such an underrated attribute in centre-backs. And I do want to talk about Brennan Johnson and how he changed the game, and 6 assists for Brennan Johnson, which is more than like Bruno Fernandes, it's more than Doku, it's the same as Odegaard. I think Brennan Johnson needs confidence, but I can see what he can bring. He's looking like a super sub, his directness. But I want to talk about Romero, Micky Van De Ven partnership. I think Micky Van De Ven has exceeded expectations, but I think this partnership I think Spurs have hit gold with this partnership. There's a lot that needs to change at Spurs in terms of they need a Pedro Neto. I think they need another midfield profile. I think they need a long-term striker, but Sonny is very, very good in the striker role. 1v1, you could bet your house on Son scoring. 1v1 Werner, you wouldn't bet anything on it. 1v1 Son, I just knew when Son was 1v1, that guy was going to score. But talking of Micky Van De Ven, talking of Romero, that partnership for me work so well together, because you've got Romero that is very good on the ball, very good in possession, can break the lines, can help him build up, and is very good at progressing the ball, as we can see by the statistics, as we can see by watching Romero. And Romero's, again, that warrior mentality. He basically injured himself to put a tackle in. He's there. He's a warrior. He's a fighter. But then you've got Micky Van De Ven. Micky Van De Ven is very, very physical, very, very good duel winner. But Micky Van De Ven has something called just these crazy legs. It's a complete made-up term I've made up, but he has those monster legs where he's fast, he's tall, he's got the pace, he's got the power. His ability to defend large spaces and cover so much ground in the way that the Premier League is moving is massive. And I'm going to say this, and I saw someone tweet this about a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying the Premier League's transitioning to a similar style of the Bundesliga. And I guess him coming from the Bundesliga and you've got to adapt to a new league, I didn't think he'd be as good as he can be. But I think the way that Spurs are playing, the way that the Premier League is moving, it is becoming more like the Bundesliga in the sense of play. Games are a lot more open. teams are scoring a lot more but conceding a lot more. I feel like Premier League, it used to be, had to break teams down, but I think most teams become more open. Spurs want to be an attacking side. Man United wants to be an attacking side, but they're very far off. Newcastle want to be playing attacking football. Arsenal want to play attacking football. Liverpool play attacking football. City play attacking football. Villa play attacking football. Brighton play attacking football. I mean, Burnley want to. Brentford do it. Like, everyone in the Premier League wants to play this sort of open attacking football, bar one or two teams, which means you see teams conceding more, and you see, because they're playing attacking football, which is why it's good as Spurs centre-backs partnership has been and their actual strongest back five has been, they do concede a lot of goals because they leave a lot of space in behind. But when you've got a player like Micky Van De Ven, you can afford to leave that kind of space in behind because he's a very good wide defender. He could play as a fullback. He's a very good wide channel defender. Because he's so quick, no one can beat him one-on-one. His recovery pace is immense that you can leave Micky Van De Ven to cover such a large area because he can track down that runner in transition. Spurs let a lot of teams play through them. Spurs like to attack, they like to overload. Teams can play through Spurs. They've conceded a lot of goals. But think how many more goals they concede if that Eric Dyer was doing the Micky Van De Ven role. Because Micky Van De Ven's ability to cover so much ground, his speed, his everything makes him so good. He's a dual winner, but his legs are so long, he can put in a tackle, he can cover the ground, he's so good one-on-one. And then you've got Romero that has one of the best technical abilities on the ball. So you've got great ball-playing centre-back, but you've got a great centre-back that can cover large spaces. And I generally think, and you can tell me if you think I'm chatting absolute rubbish, but the way football is moving in the Premier League, with teams being more open and wanting to play a more expansive style of football, the players that can cover and defend large amounts of ground, that have that athleticism, that pace and power, are going to be the most sought out after. I think Liverpool and City will want a Micky Van De Ven, particularly Liverpool, maybe not so much now Klopp's leaving transition. I think Micky Van De Ven would have been perfect for Manchester United. I'm kind of jealous. But he is a special centre-back. And that pairing works really well. And I know I'm waffling, but he's not had a bad game for Spurs. I don't think he's had a bad game for Spurs. Maddison's really good, injured, had a bit of a slow start. Bentancur, I think, is a brilliant player that doesn't look at his best for Spurs. And maybe Sarr should have started, but I guess rotation, apparently Sarr's not 100% fit. I think Sarr's a really good player. But I think with Micky Van De Ven, he's fantastic. He's good judgment, he's good IQ, he's good reading of the game, he's decent on the ball, he's decent in the air, he's a good dual winner. But I think he's all in all just off the ball work, compiled with Romero's on the ball work, makes it an absolutely brilliant duo, if that makes sense. I will say this, I think Spurs' centre-backs are great, and I think they have a lot to do because Spurs' midfield gets played through a little bit easily, and is that to do with Ange's tactics? Ange likes to attack. Is that to do with the players in midfield? A little bit of both, but I do think Ange plays a very attacking style of football. I saw today why Spurs might want maybe a destroyer-type DM. I think Bazuma was the best midfielder, but why they might want a destroyer-type DM. One, just to get the best out of the other midfielders, because I think Maddison's dropping too deep now. But I also, biggest criticism of Spurs is Romero's a good ball progressor. They don't have someone in the midfield that can just dribble through the middle. And I think that's what they missed in this particular game. And I think that's why Brennan Johnson was so good, to just have someone that can dribble the ball and be direct and bash. And I think Werner ended the game really well because instead of cutting inside and playing it back and playing sideways, he got forward. I don't know if Bergvall will come in right away, but I can see why Spurs need Bergvall's profile. If Bergvall reaches his potential, he's exactly what Spurs need. Someone in midfield that can just dribble the ball up the pitch, that is just direct, that can dribble the ball up the pitch. And I've done videos on Bergvall. I've wanted him at Manchester United. I was begging Man United to sign him. I was so disappointed we didn't get him. His ability to dribble is insane. And I'm not saying that just to hype up a Spurs player to make you guys happy. I am saying that in a sense of Bergvall's dribbling ability is absolutely incredible. Like, this is no overreaction. His ability to progress the ball, to dribble the ball, to get around people, his technical abilities, composure, done a video on it, fantastic. And I think a Bergvall type player, and the question is, he's so young, can't rely on him, and he's not going to be here till next season, in that midfield would make such a difference to Spurs, because I do think the ball progression in midfield lacked. And maybe because you weren't moving the ball as quick in midfield and you weren't having someone just drive through the midfield with the ball, was why you were struggling to break down Palace, because if you're moving the ball slowly, Palace defenders have time to get back into position. And then Spurs were, just not really doing much with all the possession they had until the final 20 minutes when they just went pow. But you have to talk about Brennan Johnson. I'm 9 minutes in. Brennan Johnson changed the game. I know I spoke about centre-backs. He changed the game. He was direct. Kula was a bit predictable. Werner wasn't really direct, and then he did become direct when Johnson came on. But as an impact sub, Johnson was phenomenal today. It was absolutely brilliant. The work he did for the Werner goal, like to press the guy, to win the ball, to put it across. And I've always said, you know, I think Brennan Johnson's one that Spurs fans need to be a bit patient with, because he's very good at pressing, winning the ball, driving forward and putting those low in swinging crosses. I think he could have like 9 crosses this season if Spurs had finished chances or they didn't have a goal ruled out or something. Brennan Johnson is very, very good at that. And I think Brennan Johnson can grow and evolve into a good player. I think he's a very good bench player to have. I think you'll want a Neto, but I think he's a very good super sub bench player because he can produce that. I don't think Brennan Johnson's a bad player. And I thought when Spurs signed him, he was quite a good signing for Spurs. And you can see that what he did today. I thought that Brennan Johnson had a really good game, and I think he partly won the game for Spurs. I do notice when Spurs go a goal behind, sometimes they start playing. Spurs are a bit slow, 1-0 behind. Sometimes they move it quicker, sometimes they start playing. But I thought Brennan Johnson's sub changed the game. I think the energy and intensity he brought was insane. I think that's exactly what they needed. His directness was what they needed, but he created the goal basically by himself. He was pressing, he was running, he was like so hungry. He showed that desire of, I want to make something happen because I'm on the bench. I don't want to be on the bench. And that's what Spurs were crying out for. Those 70 minutes, Spurs were crying out for someone just to be direct, to run. And I think if he can gain confidence, there is a good player in there. And I think he will be a good signing. So that's my general review. Son, clutch, the way you can just run and finish like that. Son is clutch. Son is Son. There was moments of boringness. There was moments where they weren't playing the best football, but they dominated the ball. They just lacked the penetration. They lacked directness. And I think Brenton changed the game. Palace had to open up a bit and Spurs took advantage of that. Let me know your thoughts down below, Spurs fans. Thank you for watching. Bye.